Hello folks, you join me and the lads on another mission to bring you some more Games Workshop stories. Hope you're having a really good Christmas. It is Christmas Day here in Casa North, and yeah, we're just chilling out, not doing very much. And I thought, since I'm not doing that much, I'm going to sit here in my brand new hoodie and my brand new pair of lounging around shorts with a nice cup of coffee to talk to you. I know, not Yorkshire tea today, it's coffee, shock horror. But I need to be woken up because it's Christmas to do some more Games Workshop stories with you. A very nice one today that I got sent, and I've been told from my pre-readers, my beta readers, that these when I say beta readers, they read these things before me, so they know what's in them and I don't. And they basically tell me which ones are good and which ones are bad and which ones are indifferent and which ones I should, you know. If your story isn't going to make it onto Hobby Nightmares, it's usually on the bottom of the pile, and I will get back to you eventually saying, oh, this is a very fun story to read. I'm not going to read it on the show, but it's a very fun story, thank you. But yeah, most of the ones that I do get, I will read out, because we're getting to that stage now where I used to say all the time, hey, I'm going to read all the stories. Some of the stories I get are like 9 of the same story, because the same things happen to different people, so I can't really do that without boring people to death. So, you know, it is what it is. But this one's from Jensen Becker 9, who is an XGW employee, or so I'm told. He says, hey North, first of all, I hope you have a very good Christmas, as we are a few days away from it now. I actually wanted to share with you a story about a Christmas at the first store I ran in the UK. I would end up running this store years after this incident, but as a staffer at the time, it was one of those legendary stories that I still chuckle about when I'm on the train or in the shower and my mind wanders. Alright? So, I've been working as a red shirt, or I had been working as a red shirt, normal staff at Games Workshop store in the UK for about a year at the time of this story. There was another staffer in the store and our manager. Thanks to the absolute pile-on that Dave's and Mike's get in your channel, let's call him John. Yeah, I really am sorry to the Dave's and Mike's of the world. There is another story about Dave coming next week. Not that Dave, another Dave. So, you know, again, apologies, but apparently his name was Dave. It is what it is, lads. You've got a very common name, so you're going to be thrown in with some really bad people from time to time. Now, John was a bloke of about 35 to 45 years of age. Normal build, average-looking bloke with a rather loud, carrying voice. He was a genuine dude in my interview, and we bonded a lot over our shared love of orcs. Since he was the manager, now everybody knows there are no salty dudes who are orc players. That's actually kind of true. I don't know any orc players who are outrageous, outrageous douches when we're playing the game. I don't know any. I'm sure other people will correct me and say, I know plenty. I've known orc players who are not very nice to know outside of the hobby, maybe. But actually playing the game, they're so used to losing so many models and most battles that they're just, or at least they used to be, that they just chuckle along and embrace the chaos of it, ironically, you know. So yeah, I get what you mean when you say that. So I'll start that again. Now everybody knows there are no salty dudes who are orc players. So when the job was offered to me, even though I was fresh out of university, I leapt at the chance to be a part of Games Workshop, at least for a time, as I got my life together. Right, so what you're doing here is you're doing exactly what you should do if you want to work for Games Workshop. Work for them when you can afford to work for them. But if you need rent, don't work for them, because you're not going to be able to pay your rent. Almost as soon as I was in this guy's power, however, things started to turn. He would constantly berate me and my colleague over our performances in terms of sales. He would set targets of 10 core box sets sold per person per week. Wow, and if this is back in the day, this is North talking, if this is back in the day, when we had Dark Vengeance and really bad starter box sets, because they were bad when you look at what was in them, that is ridiculous. Because Games Workshop, as I've said before, they only used to count the major starter box set, so you had to sell, the main starter game box set, and only Games Workshop only did the one, and it was always quite expensive. So Dark Vengeance was the one I sold, and it was always really expensive, and it was the one that you had to try and sell people on. And if you didn't, then Games Workshop basically said you weren't getting anybody into the hobby, so you weren't doing your job properly. You need to be fired, essentially, right? I know. If that sounds retarded and stupid to you, that's because it is. And eventually, they did change it after we all complained so much that I think one or two people just walked. But I think everybody complained so much that they eventually did change it. They changed it to be quite a good system where if you sell a Start Collecting box set, or it'll be Combat Patrols these days, but if you sell a Start Collecting box set, or a starter paint set, or a starter brush set, or any of the 3 starter box sets of differing prices, some of them cheaper than others, you get a nice little tick next to your name, which I think is a much better system. Anyway. Jensen says, we ran through brick walls to chase customers down and barely scratched 8 box sets each, for which we would get an absolute bollocking, as in, he literally shouted at us on Saturday morning debriefs where he would tell us that working for Games Workshop was a privilege and not a right. What? And that there were thousands of people who wanted to be where we were at that moment. Okay, so I've had this as well. I had a manager who drank the Kool-Aid and basically went out of his way to tell us that we were terrible at our jobs, that, you know, everybody was jealous of us because we had a job at Games Workshop, and that it was very easy to, quote-unquote, be kicked out of heaven, right? Like we were in a very privileged position, and we should be paying them for working there, really. You know, it's such a nice place to work. It was the most toxic way of looking at things like this, and I hated every single second of that kind of an attitude. It was horrible. And it is quite common at Games Workshop, unfortunately. It is quite common. And it is quite common. I know one person who's on the channel, hello to you, I'm not going to mention your name, who used to work for Blizzard. And apparently it was quite common there as well. It was very much a, you're so lucky to work here, you're lucky we're paying you at all, sort of an attitude, you know? Games Workshop do exactly the same. I think Wizards of the Coast do exactly the same thing as well. When I've read about how their writers are treated, you're lucky to work for us. No, go fuck yourself. You're lucky to have me, because you hardly pay me anything. Anyway, carry on. A few months into the job, I ended up attending a training meeting for prospective new managers. I was joining a thing called the Pipeline that was just coming into effect for new managers, and they wanted to meet people who could make the step up from the staff to be a manager. Okay, cool. I did something similar, but it was a bit more refined by the time I did it. He says, I spoke to a guy from a major UK store, another staffer, only to be told that on a good week, he sold about 5 core starter box sets. Right, so on a good week, this guy is in a much bigger store than you, selling 5. On a good week. He thought that our targets were outlandish and kind of impossible to hit. And we were at a far smaller store than his in terms of catch-all area. Catch-all area means the amount of people within your store radius that can come in. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, dude. You know what he's doing? He's setting the bar really, really, really high, so even if you just about miss it, you're still, like, outperforming nearly everybody else in the company. And he's going to burn you out. That's what my manager did as well. He burned people out. He would ream through people very, very, very quickly. He would set really, really, really high targets, and then you wouldn't hit them. He would berate you constantly, even though you were like 3/4 of the way to this outlandish target. So you're already selling more than most people at Games Workshop are going to be selling. It's not good enough for him, though. He's going to ream you out and shout at you and demean you. And eventually he burns you out, you leave, he goes and gets another customer to come in who's just happy to work for Games Workshop, and he starts the process all over again. That's how you be a manager at Games Workshop. That's how you become a success. It's a horrible thing, but if you're willing to do that effort in a smaller store, you can make buco bucks at Games Workshop by exploiting other people. That's the model. That's the model of what it is, right? Bring a hobbyist in who just wants to make the hobby better, who just wants to be a part of Games Workshop, and you demean them, and you run them down, and you make sure that they can't sleep when they go home, because they're trying to meet your targets, and you might sack them at any moment. Eventually, they quit, because they've had enough, and they can't do it anymore, they're burned out. You go and get the next schmuck to come in, and help you out with your store, and run your store for you, and boost your sales numbers, right? That's what you do. You can't do that in a one-man store, but most of the staffed stores I saw that weren't huge stores, they were run this way. They were run this way. Always by the managers, quote-unquote, that I didn't get along with. Funny that, isn't it? Anyway. Things didn't change when I went back to the store. In fact, they got worse. To know, though, that this guy was expecting the earth in his delusion of his own self-importance and store size was kind of pathetic. He would get all of the adulation, rewards, and pats on the back for our hard work, and wouldn't mention us to anybody in terms of our effort. I know this because in my own interview for being a manager, I told them about my performance at the store, and they were honestly surprised, as they had asked my manager for a comment on my work and ethic in the store, and he just said that it was satisfactory, quote unquote, which apparently, coming from him, is some sort of compliment. What a douche, dude. I will say this for my manager. I will say this. When they asked him whether I'd be a good manager, he told them I would be. I'll say that for him. Right? He had redeeming qualities. He ran you into the ground, but he did have redeeming qualities. And, you know, he was a douche on many levels, but he was kind of like the lawful evil guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's evil, yeah. But if you work your ass off for him, he'll never tell you to your face that you're doing well, because he wants you to think that you're about to lose your job. But if somebody from head office asks if you're doing well, he will tell them. Do you know what I mean? He will tell them, because he's a company guy through and through, and he wants you to stay with the company because he knows how good you are. It's just he's got a very warped way of going about it. Kind of like a dad who never tells you he loves you. You know what I mean? Kind of like that. Anyway. You would never be told you were doing a good job, says Jensen, ever. You'd only have things you did slightly wrong thrown in your face. It was kind of a nightmare. We had a customer, Jeff. He would come in only on days that John was not there. John being the manager, if you've forgotten. You see, Jeff suffered from a fainting and vomiting condition that would be triggered if he became overly stressed, and being in confrontations made him trigger out, as he used to call it. I think it was a mixture of some sort of fainting disorder and the way that his epilepsy would trigger or something like that. I never really asked. I just sold the guy models and made sure he was alright and comfortable when he came in. Good lad. Yeah, it's none of your business. If he tells you he's got something wrong with him, that's fine. Just make sure he's okay when he's there. You know, you don't care. You're selling him models, as you say. Well, this story revolves around a time John, the manager, demanded to swap shifts with my colleague because John's girlfriend wanted to go away and do something the following week. Apparently, there was an EVE Online event John was missing, as he had to swap the shifts to get the time off, and he was in a foul mood all day. Yeah, I'm not surprised this guy was an EVE Online player. I know many people who play EVE Online. Some of them are very nice. A lot of them, though, are douches. I don't know why. I don't know why. A lot of them tends to be overly competitive, overly obsessive, and will go out of their way to ruin your day. Saying that, I also know a lot of people who used to play EVE Online who are also very nice and like to go mining and you know, plonking about on ships. Some of them even go pirating and stuff. But they're honourable pirates of the road. You know what I mean? They'll hold you up, give us your cargo, right, on you go. You know, that sort of a thing. Anyway. He stalks around the store, generally barking at people, giving one-word answers to questions from customers, and just huffing and puffing around. And, of course, everything I do is wrong in his eyes today. Yeah, I'm surprised this guy lasted at Games Workshop, I'm gonna be honest. In walks Jeff. He is walking around and waiting for me to be free, and I head over to him. He asks if his order has come in to the store, and I say, yeah, I think it has, man. Let me check behind the till. Right, so for those of you who don't know, you can order your models to be freely delivered to a Games Workshop store for free, instead of paying postage. So if you want a little thing, you can get it sent to a Games Workshop store for free, which I think is pretty cool. But it also does kind of... purport the attitude of, I'm lazy, I don't want to pay this, so I'm going to order it to your Games Workshop store. You're not getting the credit for the sale, but I'm going to come in and take up some space in your store anyway. And I'm going to come in, take the thing that I ordered and walk. Now, don't get me wrong, the company provided a means to do that, so that's not a bad thing, you know what I mean? But it is for the manager. Like, for me, I used to hate that. I used to hate it when a customer that I've never seen before would swan in, demand that I give him his parcel. I give him his parcel, he walks around, turns around and walks out. I'm like, great, man. That big box in my back room was taking up a load of space that I could use for stock. But, you know, thank you for coming in and not giving me any custom at all. Brilliant. Yeah, I know you gave money to Games Workshop, but you didn't give money to my till. It doesn't count. Like, literally, like Games Workshop have made a sale and I haven't. Brilliant. You're just using my place as a fucking post office. Just, you know. Anyway, going on. So, I go behind the till and start rummaging around, only to hear John head over to this guy, Jeff, he has never seen before, but obviously uses the store. He admonishes Jeff and tells him he should not use the store like a post office. Fucking hell, I just said that. That he should not use the store as a post office for his orders. I mean, okay, right. I know I just said that to you guys. I would never say this to a customer. Ever. Ever. Like, you're taking advantage, as I just said. You're taking advantage of a thing Games Workshop lets you do. That's fine. It's not for me to ruin your day by telling you you're doing something wrong. You're doing completely fine. It's Games Workshop's fault that they let you do this. And I would complain to Games Workshop all the time. But not you guys. You guys could come into my store, pick up all the orders you want, and I'd give it to you with a smile. Ha, there you go. Fucking buy something. Buy something. And we'd walk away and not buy anything. But that's fine. Right? I'd hold it in. Because it's not your problem. This guy's being an arsehat. You don't talk to customers about company problems. This is a Games Workshop problem. This isn't your poor fucking customer's problem, alright? He admonishes Jeff and tells him he should not use the store like a post office for his orders. I mean, shitting hell. Is John having a laugh? Plus, Jeff does get his mail orders to the store, but he orders them from the store computer to make sure we get the revenue and credit for it. Wow, what a chad. What a chad. I had certain people who do that as well. I had guys who would come in and go, yeah, can I pre-order that thing? I want to pre-order it on the computer so you get credit for it. And I'd be like, thank you, man. Brilliant. And do you know what I'd always do? And they never found out. I would always give them an extra paint. So if they did that in my store, the unofficial rule was I wouldn't tell any, I wouldn't advertise it. But if they were doing ultramarines, for instance, you know, I'd pick out a colour that they use with ultramarines, whether it's one of the golds or one of the blues, and I'd put it in with the order. But there you go, just a thank you for using the store computer to get your order, you know? For the cost of nothing, basically, like a paint, you know? We were making buco bucks. Like people would come to my store to order stuff from the computer rather than doing it at home because they knew they'd get a little pot of paint. They knew that and it's worth £2 something, you know? It's not worthless to them. It's worthless to me because I'm Games Workshop and we can produce these things. We can produce millions of these things without ever losing money, let's be honest, right? But it's worth a lot to them. It's worth more to them than it is to us. So I'd always give away, if you came and used my computer to order something, especially if it was big, I'd always put a little treat in there for you as a thank you. If it was a paintbrush, if it was a pot of paint, or maybe even a white dwarf. I did that a few times, where I'd literally known lost a white dwarf, and I'd just put it in somebody's bag just to say thank you very much for doing that for me. Yeah, and Jeff, for not getting a reward here as being an absolute chad. What a customer. Good guy. Jeff, of course, can't really plead his case as his condition sets a tick in one eye and makes him stammer. So he just stands there horrified as the manager kind of reams him out in a good-natured quote-unquote way. John continues to talk to him about the importance of not taking advantage of the fantastic and frankly over-generous quote-unquote offer Games Workshop extends to him to let him order stuff to the store. What a douchebag, man. Why the hell is he's still pressing the point? At this point, you'd tell him to fuck off, right? Your company lets me do this. I'm not breaking the law. Don't be a douche. He then asks Jeff about what army he plays. Oh, finally you want to be a Games Workshop manager now. Brilliant. So after about 5 to 10 minutes of you reaming this guy out, now you start to do what your job actually is. Brilliant. Fantastic. He then asks Jeff about what army he plays. Jeff stammers, Tau? To which point John laughs and slaps him on the back. Big no-no. Don't touch customers. I don't even care if you're slapping him on the back or you're pushing them out the way or whatever. Don't touch customers. At all. Right? Unless you have to. Unless something's about to fall on them, or they're about to walk into somebody, or they're about to walk into a display or something, then yeah, fine. But don't touch customers if you can avoid it. He slaps his back and starts telling him how Tau are for weebs. This guy's not for real. This guy's not for real. If you're lying to me, I'm surprised this guy's in a fucking job. This guy's not for real. No. Do you know what? Actually, reading the rest of the story, I can probably imagine this guy's probably real. To be honest with you, I've heard worse tales than this about what managers have said to people over the years. Tau are for weebs. Jesus Christ. I mean, think about applying to the lowest common denominator, lads. The lowest common denominator this guy is literally jumping into here. That is the lowest form of memery. It's so lazy. Jensen says, John is having one of those non-human days, it seems. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. I like that. I see more and more, as I frantically look for this order beneath the till, that Jeff is getting more and more distressed. He actively tries to walk away, but ends up just walking backwards and nearly into the display case, which only stresses him more. Startled, he snaps. And it happens. Oh. He projectile vomits straight into John's face. Oh. It's a Christmas present just for me. Full pelt. His entire breakfast and lunch. Then he faints completely, falling straight forwards onto John, who staggers backwards onto the gaming table whilst holding him up. The store goes quiet. The store goes quiet, and I stand at the till with Jeff's order in my hands. I think I literally said, "I found it," just as the vomit started. I look at them both and say, much to my shame and almost losing my job, "Oh, mate, that is fucking hilarious." Good lad, don't hold it in. Don't hold it in. Legendary. John is not pleased and demands I get Jeff off of him. I do so. John is now having a fit as I lower Jeff onto the floor and make sure he isn't swallowing his tongue. You see, John has a weak stomach. He staggers towards the back room, retching all the while, covered in vomit, and eventually gives in and vomits himself all over the floor back there. He throws himself into the back room and the toilet area and refuses to come out. Instead, he calls the store phone, to his credit, to ask if Jeff is okay. Oh, that's good. Okay, cool. He probably wants to make sure somebody hasn't died in the store, to be honest with you. At this point, Jeff has already left. His episodes last less than a few minutes. I had cleaned up his mess with industrial carpet cleaner and all as well. I let John know this, and John calls his girlfriend to turn up with a fresh pair of clothes for him and some soap. He only emerges in his own clothes once I've closed the store. He never thanked me for cleaning up his vomit too. That was near the break room door, but there we are. He was let go eventually for unrelated issues over his performance, and after a few interviews, I took the store over for a time before I also left the company. It remains my defining memory of my early Games Workshop years. Damn how my colleague nearly died laughing as I regaled it to him with him over a pint that weekend. Cheers North, happy holidays, Jensen Becker 9. Jesus man, that was a hoot and a half. I love that one. That was brilliant. Nothing better than when they get their comeuppance, isn't it? There's nothing better. There's absolutely nothing better. Oh, it just shows you as well. Don't stress people out for no reason. And don't touch customers. It just doesn't work. Doesn't end well. Anyway, love you all long time. Tomorrow we're discussing the Night Lords. And I'm going to be going over the ADB books as well. I can't wait to go over those things. By the way, I discovered a lovely YouTube channel this weekend. Last night, actually, when I was going to bed, called Law Crimes. Head over to it and have a little watch of it. Amber King's on there. Pancreas No Workers on there. A lot of guys are on there. It is hilarious. It is. Did any of you ever watch the Come Town podcast back in the day or listen to it? It's kind of like that, but less edgy and about Warhammer. It's brilliant. Go watch it. Go listen to it. It's awesome. I love you all long time. I will speak to you tomorrow for some more, 40k lore. And then on Wednesday, we'll be doing some more Hobby Nightmares. Love you all. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.